right? Is any of this true? And the thing was that, again, I want to point out is that we have tablets that were written from much earlier time periods, like ancient, as early as we can get, that later ones basically are saying like almost the same thing, but they're from completely different time periods in history. That's how you get that clarity of thinking of what might be real.
Similar argument to the phenomenon with the description of potential beings. And
the point, I guess, and I didn't necessarily want to get off on that super deep rabbit hole, but we did what we did
today.
So
keep going.
So the point I'm trying to make is there's things going on here that are like supernatural almost. There's things going on that are beyond our linear comprehension of just us here alone with nothing influencing us at all. And that has to do with the first city ever created. Again, we're going to go all the way back to where we were, is that in these tablets, if you want to believe anything that we're saying, how about we actually verify with real on the ground places? That's what's so exciting, right? Now let's take what was theoretical, potentially, and what was mythical and all these things, which was what everything of this was, because it's so ancient, that now let's try to see if any of that's real. First place to look is that, well, in 6 different tablets, from the Sumerian king list to Eridu Genesis, we get what they state is the first city ever created after the Ajiji, and it's called Eridu. Eridu, and it's located in southern Iraq. And every tablet, literally everything mentions it being the first. It's not like in question about one tablet being somewhere and blah, blah, blah. And they do credit it as being the first city ever on Earth, even in mainstream. And you'll see that.
So how many people lived here?
We don't have a population, but I can tell you that it's acknowledged as being the first city ever on Wikipedia right there. And yet this site is the greatest conspiracy of any ancient site in the world.
Why?
It has only been partially excavated between the late 1800s, 1887, and then it was partially excavated again in 1946 and 1948, and then it was abandoned and nothing has happened since.
Why?
Here's where it gets more wild. When they excavated it and they found Eridu, it must have been quite a shock to them because, remember, myth, not really myth anymore. It was the first one they found. University of Oxford and other groups came there in 1946, and they're like, this really is Eridu. And today, there is still, in the Oxford University, there is still a section of the library there that has some relics from Eridu with writing and stuff on them. So why do I say that? Because they found it. They found all kinds of artifacts, but they only excavated the main part of the city. But in ancient times, where the people lived is not where the higher-ups lived. So like priests and higher-up people, they never lived together. So what would happen is you'd have a main city below and then always on a prominent mountain. Sometimes they described it, in this case, Eridu is not a natural formation. They described it as actually creating a mountain in the middle of nowhere to be this like standing above everything. So they create this temple called the Ziggurat of Eridu, okay? And it's this mass. You know what a ziggurat is?
Nope.
Ziggurat is a pyramid, but in Mesopotamia.
Okay.
It's their version of a pyramid.
Got it.
Okay. So they make this incredible ziggurat temple on this mountain that looks over this endless plain and then there's like the little city down below where people live and there's commerce and all that stuff. They get there knowing that. They look up and see the ziggurat. Like, it's insane because you can look at pictures, and I'll go into how I know all this in a second. They get there, they find it. You imagine if today, right? Imagine if we had a town that had like an incredible museum with all kinds of artifacts and stuff. Would you find any of those artifacts in any other part of the town except the museum? Probably not, right?
No, they put it all there.
So imagine going there and knowing that 99% of all of the relics and artifacts would be in that ziggurat, in those temples and in those libraries, and you don't even excavate it at all.
Why?
I mean, not zero.
Before I ask why they didn't do that, I misunderstood your first question then.
Yes.
So why would it only be in those places?
Relics,
because you asked as a museum.
Important relics and things would be kept in the temple. Always. Would be kept in these sacred places. Ancient
But there
tablets,
could be more than one or two, no?
The ziggurat was the great temple of Eridu.
I know, but couldn't there St. Patrick's Cathedral is like the great fucking cathedral in
They
New
didn't
York
do
City.
that back.
It's not the only church
They didn't
in
do
there.
that back then.
There's none of that.
No, back then religion was done through the high priest only.
In one place.
Yes.
Okay, continue. So why didn't they excavate
So they
this?
get there. Again, there's literally on display artifacts from Eridu in the University of Oxford. So you can squash the whole idea they didn't find anything type of concept. And
Yes.
then that's why, right? They find those artifacts in 1876 or something.
But they stopped in 1948.
They have a gap where they don't do anything
Nothing.
for like 40 years. The University of Oxford and this big group comes back as this big expedition. They come back.
At the end of World War I.
Yes. And they right? And they find it and they get the ziggurat and all that stuff and they never come back. Like a memo came down. I'm just speculating, but someone made a decision, very powerful. There's nothing else you can describe this as, because it also pisses religion off too, because then
I'll
you
bet.
get into Enki and the snake and the serpent, remember? So someone made a very powerful decision to literally have this place disappear. But there still seems to be this like old code, if I want to describe it as. There's an old code with whoever makes these decisions where they can't just destroy something themselves. It's like they have to have someone else do it. I don't know why, but they sort of just left it there, right? It's kind of weird, but they left it in the middle of the desert. And then, of course, we had Iraq, all the instability in Iraq and everything. And to this day, Eridu has not one fence, not one single piece of infrastructure around it at all. And when I realized that, I went on a crusade called the Campaign to Save Eridu, all various different things. And I was on my website and I started talking all about it on shows like on Gaia and other shows. And I took images from people that had gone there from like Baghdad who were looting it. Walking around, yeah. Like, and I have a
So
whole...
it's not even in any way...
No, it's,
oh my god!
And I have all those images on my on one of the videos I did and on different places. And if you look up Eridu, if you just look it up on Google Maps, you can find the images. I think they're still there.
Because as I was scrolling here, listening to that, I'm trying to see like if there's something on Wikipedia, for example, that mentions like a segment that's called like conspiracy or like controversy, and I don't really see anything. There's only one little thing that says tablet controversy. It's less than a full paragraph.
I seem to be the only one doing this, and I don't know. There's various reasons for that.
So for the skeptic out there
Yeah.
who listens to you and says, well, why is one asshole in fucking Colorado doing this and no one else is? Are you really onto something that no one else is? Why are you onto something?
I don't think that anyone in the mainstream is allowed to touch it.
Why would that be?
Because this single site, regardless of all the other places we're about to go, can completely change history.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.